An organization's a company publicly listed on NASDAQ that has tens of trillions of dollars of assets under management. They disclose that they have like 14 trillion, but that is only BlackRock. Then they own majority share in most of the companies in America, right? So they also have money and funneled through all those things as well. But what companies? They own Pfizer, they own Moderna, they own all the airlines, they own all the social networks. When you see all this stuff, all this agenda, everybody working together, then you have to realize who actually owns it. This isn't a conspiracy. You go to Yahoo Finance, you go to top holders of all these shareholding companies, and you see BlackRock and Vanguard at the top.
Vanguard, BlackRock, they're pretty much running everything.
Yeah.
And then you see their influence in defense contracts, okay? So we went through a deal. I'm like, let me see if these guys, this ESG, Larry Fink, Vanguard, State Street, if they have any influence on military contract, defense contracts. If you Google the largest shareholder for Raytheon, 3 out of the 4 top shareholders of Raytheon, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. Rebuilding of Ukraine. Did you see this contract? Rebuilding of Ukraine, $400 billion contract. BlackRock and Chase is helping rebuild Ukraine. And then, you know, okay, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but what the hell is going on here? They have that much control to get everybody to do what they want them to do? Yes. So Dylan Mulvaney, who cares? Why? Bud Light. If we gave more money to Ukraine than Russia spent on their military last year. And when you look at these contracts, then you're like, okay, Fink is there, these guys are there. Okay, let's go look at Hollywood. Same thing you see there. Let's go look at pharmaceutical. Let's go look at this. And you're like, wait a minute. These guys essentially have a monopoly. Well, how big is BlackRock? $10 trillion. How big is $10 trillion? Only 2 countries have a bigger GDP than what BlackRock has. Assets under management, US and China. That's how big BlackRock is. And you say, okay, how much money is that in what these guys are doing? You'll find the amount of money we spent in our military, $744 billion on how much we're making from defense, but you'll see some numbers saying last year is 13% of our GDP, which is around $850 billion. That's more than the next 10 combined. We gave.
This BlackRock employee may have just exposed the entire organization.
It's not who's the president, it's who's controlling the wallet. So it's the,
and who's that?
The hedge funds, BlackRock, the banks. These guys are campaign financing. Yep, you can buy your candidates.
How so?
All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians.
How do they run the world?
You acquire stuff. You diversify, you acquire, you keep acquiring, you spend whatever you make in acquiring more. And at a certain point, your risk level is super low.
So he's being interviewed by a girl he believes he's actually on a date with from OMG Group. And she just got him to admit that he believes BlackRock isn't only paying out politicians, that they control the president himself.
Imagine you've invested in like 10 different industries, from food to drinks to like technology, right? One of them fails, it doesn't matter. You have 9 others to back you up. Risk management is inherently in just about everything. And in the finance space, it's all about it's all about the money you make. You don't let it sit. You keep using it over and over, and
reinvest.
Yeah, and it exponential growth.
And then once you just own a little bit of everything, is that where the control?
Yeah, you own a little bit of everything, and that little bit of everything gives you so much money on a yearly basis that you can take this big ton of money, and then you can start to buy people. Obviously, we have.
See, I feel bad for this guy because he is 100% getting fired, or at least let me know what you think is going to happen to him after BlackRock sees this video. But it's crazy that he's confirming what everybody already speculates. BlackRock owns and controls everything.
The system in place. First, there's the Senate space, and these guys are rich. You got 10 grand, you can buy a senator. It doesn't matter who wins.
You're still right.
They're in my pocket at this point. I can give you $500K right now, no questions asked.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do what needs to be done? They'll be like, yeah, of course.
And
why not?
Does like everybody do that? Does BlackRock do that? Any thoughts on the Ukraine-Russia war?
Ukraine is good for business. You know that, right? We don't want the conflict to end.
Why?
We don't want the conflict to end as a country. The longer this goes on, the weaker Russia is. I'll give an example. Russia blows up Ukraine's grain silos. Price of wheat's gonna go mad up. So what are you gonna do if you're a trading firm? The moment that news hits, within a millisecond, you're gonna pump trades into whoever the wheat suppliers are, into their stocks. Within an hour or two, that stock goes up, and then you sell, and you just made.
Now this 100% happens. In fact, BlackRock and JP Morgan just bought Ukraine and pretty much are re-advising all of their debt, which means they practically control all of their assets. At the same time, as Ukraine gets destroyed, BlackRock is saying, hey, we're gonna help you rebuild. We're gonna invest in your country. But they own the companies like Raytheon that are selling this equipment and profiting off the war already. They're just double dipping their toes, pumping stocks and controlling and manipulating the market, for example, the wheat market, just like he's saying. So the only question left here is, do you believe that this video is real?
Two companies control the world, and yet you don't know who they are. When we think of the most powerful companies in the world, we often think of Apple, Google, or Amazon. However, these companies are small potatoes compared to the two behemoths that are BlackRock and Vanguard. BlackRock and Vanguard are the two most powerful investment funds in the world, with over 15 trillion in assets under management, or roughly 5 times the GDP of France. So how do these two companies control the world? It's simple. Vanguard and BlackRock own shares in all the world's most powerful companies. They are the largest shareholders in Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft. They are veritable financial monsters. The two of them own absolutely everything in pharmaceuticals, transport, banking, and the media. It's simple. Every time you do something, you make BlackRock and Vanguard richer. Look at TF1, you make Vanguard richer. You go on Instagram, you make BlackRock richer. You buy an iPhone, you make Vanguard richer. And the terrifying thing is that when you make Vanguard richer, you also make BlackRock richer, because the two companies are each other's largest shareholders. Two companies can.
You probably heard that BlackRock recently bought Ancestry.com, so they now have all of our genetic information. Well, that's not true. You heard wrong. This is actually a video about how BlackRock is buying up single-family homes, but let's start with Ancestry.com because the two are linked. The Ancestry.com was actually bought by Blackstone, which is different than BlackRock. The two are often confused for understandable reasons. But anytime that one of your sources confuses the two, it should be a bit of a red flag that they're not doing their own research very thoroughly. And when it comes to the US retail housing market, the same confusion plays a big role.
You go to Amazon, for example, you go to Yahoo Finance, you go to Amazon, you go to the...
So a BlackRock recruiter got caught on secret camera exposing all of BlackRock's top secrets. And spoiler...
So people have this idea that Larry...
Welcome back to Common Sense.
So people have this idea that Larry Fink has a great deal of power and is able to force companies
Larry does have a lot of power, but he's not going into the company and saying, make this change or I'm going to dump your stuff.
Welcome back to Common Sense, everybody. I'm Wendy Bell. You know, it's stunning to monitor the media's lack of interest in the whole Maui story. I've been in this business for 30 years. I'm stunned, but I'm not surprised. The dots are connecting. And coincidence seems to be the story here, right? But the true story, the media knows it is not allowed to tell. But I can. Is it a coincidence that the Maui police chief is the same man who was in charge in Las Vegas during that massacre that killed 58 people? Is it a coincidence that the Maui property, owned by million and billionaires, it wasn't touched by the flames while homes of the locals all burned? Was it a coincidence that the flames traveled across hundreds of feet of pavement and crossed a 4-lane highway with emergency shoulders to jump into the ocean and then burn all the boats? Was it a coincidence that the largest system of outdoor emergency sirens in the world never made a sound as the fire devoured Lahaina? Was it a coincidence that at the same time, very same time, all the water was turned off? Was it a coincidence that police were ordered to block off streets and to funnel all the cars trying to escape onto one road where that firestorm incinerated entire families? How about the coincidence that the governor of Hawaii, Josh Green, just weeks before that inferno, signed a pledge to the UN's 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development, pledging to eliminate emissions? Weird. And think about this coincidence. That governor also signed an emergency proclamation on July 17th, 3 weeks before the fire, about housing of all things, and suspended 7 state statutes protecting historic preservation laws, removing all of the red tape when it comes to building infrastructure. Coincidentally, that emergency proclamation also suspends previous building laws and gives the governor some magic wand power to appoint a housing czar to rule on the island's redevelopment. Is it a coincidence that the government put up a black fence around Lahaina, or that the FAA grounded all drones from flying over the affected areas? Is it a coincidence that since at least 2011, there have been plans to make Maui the first smart city run by 100% renewable energy, and that coincidentally, 2 of the 3 largest landowners on Maui are BlackRock and the U.S. government, and that both are part of the UN's agenda?
Company and Larry Fink hold such power. Why is it that you have not heard of them more? There is power in anonymity. If BlackRock is barely featured in print publications and news channels, it is because they want it to be so. If they wanted, they could feature every day. BlackRock currently owns 18% of Fox, 16% of CBS, and 13% of Comcast, which in turn owns NBC, MSNBC, and Sky. If any of those companies wanted to make a decision, they would have to also consult with BlackRock before doing so. The same is true for Google, a tech giant currently worth $853 billion. Amazon, Facebook, and Twitter are also not exempt, and neither is Disney. Thanks to their incredibly diverse investment portfolio in media alone, BlackRock essentially owns 90% of the world's media. If you don't know about them, it's because they don't want you to. Why? Owning a portion of the world doesn't come without its share of scandal or conflict. In 2020, BlackRock became the first foreign company to be allowed into China's mutual fund industry, which means they can now invest and own parts of Chinese companies, including ones that are blacklisted by the United States. One of the first investments made by BlackRock was in Hikvision, a security and communications firm that essentially makes facial recognition software for use by the Chinese government. But this money isn't just BlackRock's or Larry Fink's. It comes from pension funds and bank accounts of ordinary civilians who have unknowingly given money to BlackRock in the past. If we take into account BlackRock's ownership over Western media, banks, e-commerce stores, social media, food and beverages, and many, many more industries, it becomes evident that the company has a wealth of data on us. They may do with it what they please. TikTok's data harvesting pales in comparison to what BlackRock is capable of, given how they have everything from our bank account numbers to our personal tastes and preferences. As BlackRock's investment in China grows, so will China's influence on the world. And our personal data, which was hanging on a thread to begin with, will quickly end up in the wrong hands. With the trajectory BlackRock has been on, it seems their influence will only grow as they acquire more and more of the world to control. If such is the case, we are headed into a dystopian world where corporations have more power than governments.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors. What we are doing internally is, if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted, okay? You have to force behaviors. If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race, you're going to be impacted. Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force...
It's stunning to monitor the media's lack of...
Not a conspiracy theorist, but what the hell is going on here? We think our president is the most powerful person. That person's not.
Why is no one talking about this? You won't believe why all compasses point north. Don't miss the latest revelation.
I don't got to do all the talking.
So I was looking at who's...
And while Joe Biden tries to build diplomatic bridges, a recruiter from the world's biggest financial giant, BlackRock, says it doesn't matter who the president of the US is, since it's the banks that really rule the world. What he didn't know was that his words were caught on camera. RT's Umema Isha digs deeper.
One of the world's most powerful U.S. asset management firms, BlackRock, has had notorious reputation for a long time. But now, thanks to journalist James O'Keefe, the scale of the firm's influence looks like what some would call a conspiracy theory, as the company's recruiter Serge Varley did not shy away from disclosing this.
Let me tell you something.
It's controlling the wall.
And who's that?
The hedge funds, the banks, these guys convene financing. Yep, you can buy, and obviously we have the system. First there's the senators, and these guys are rich. You got 10 grand, you can buy something. You can 500K right now.
Yeah.
Identity is done.
Does like everybody do that? Does BlackRock do that?
It doesn't matter who wins.
They're still right.
They're my partners.
As if that was not enough, the recruiter went on to explain how not only does the Ukraine conflict benefit the U.S. economy, but also how similar corporations do not want it to stop.
Ukraine is good for business.
The North Pole. And it's the center of the Earth magnetic field, known as the Taurus field. That black thing in the center of the whirlwind is the tallest mountain on Earth, far more taller than the Mount Everest. It's so tall that even it peaks reaching out the clouds. It's the Rupes Nigra, or the BLACKROCK, also known as Mount Meru. Some people also called it Mount Zion. You wouldn't find this massive mountain existence in mainstream science and media because it's deliberately concealed. Because if the world knew that there is such a huge mountain in the center of the Earth, it would change the course of history. This includes the true nature of our world will be rewritten, and that will undo the globe-shaped Earth theory and the entire timeline of the Earth from the beginning, and they don't want that. Look how the wind stream passes through that mountain. It blocks the wind stream because of its height and size. The Rupes Nigra, or the Black Rock, describes by Mercator as 33 French miles in size, or roughly 40 miles in diameter. It's purportedly explained why all compasses point to this location. The biggest shareholder of all the major companies in the world is BlackRock. It's named after this mountain.
So let's get back to our world hierarchy pyramid, shall we? And what we talked about is how this pyramid shows you the structure of power and control level by level. So we started with the first level and how the monetary system, the pharmaceutical system, big business is all controlled at the bottom, with us being right below that as well. Now the gray box is the next level of control. Some of the stuff I actually haven't even heard of, so there's some research that needs to be done. But we'll see some things on here that we're pretty used to hearing about. Committee of 300, we have the cartel, we have the black market, international law, the Octagon Group, and the big one, and you guys know I'm a fan of them, BlackRock. So we're starting to see how all of this stuff is playing out, right? The more you know, the more influential you are, the higher up this list you're going to move. That's why we hear things about people in the Freemasons, the Illuminati, secret societies, things like that. It's because they, according to this pyramid and according to society, have more control than most people do. But most of this is all probably a conspiracy anyway, so let's get back to our world.
So why are these guys doing what they're doing? You have all the money in the world. You live in a $100 million house. Not you, Larry Fink and some of these guys. I don't know if he lives in a $100 million house, but you got the money to live in a $100 million. What else do you need? Right. You got nice cars. Jamie Dimon's got a $900 million art collection, according to an article. It's a nice art collection, right? You go to all the nice restaurants, you meet prime ministers, you meet presidents, and then maybe there comes a time when you're looking at a couple of these guys, they're presidents and prime ministers, and you tell yourself, I'd be a better president than you, bro. How the hell am I not reading the country? Or they tell themselves, you think you're a president? You're not a president, you work for me. What else is the motive?
But ESG, how does that factor?
But the point is control, is what I'm saying. So the motive becomes control more than money. After you have